morning. Welcome to Morning Brew with Yes, it's your girl Germaine, and today is Mixed Blend Wednesday. So, did you guys blend anything today? I hope you're able to stop by for a quick coffee break with me because I do have our resident guest in studio, Dr. V, who actually is going to pick up on part 2 of full course preaching. Yes, he is a #1 best-selling author. Hooray, hooray. We are so excited about that. So we're going to get all into it. And he's also releasing something new today. You know, I say he stops by monthly and he always comes with the gifts. So let's bring him in so we can get into this conversation and we can talk all about full course preaching and just how this journey has been, because he released this book last month. And yes, we are here with the #1 best-selling author and with a new release. So hold on, let me bring him into studio with us. Dr. V.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Good morning, Germaine. Good morning, Morning View family. It is a pleasure to be with you once again as I make my monthly visit
Yes.
from the doctor.
Yes. Thank you for gracing us with your presence once a month. I know you are super busy. So for me, it's truly an honor. It's a blessing that you would bless us once a month with the champion leader. So let's talk about this book of yours and how it's become a #1 bestseller. And then I just want to know about the journey, before we get into a lot that we're going to talk about today to pick up for part 2. I just want to know, how did you feel when you got the call saying the book hit #1 on Amazon and it's still on the bestseller list in all 3 categories and we're 5 weeks in? How are you feeling?
It felt great. It felt fulfilling. It felt like purpose. One of the things that's important to me and has become more important to me at this stage of my life is I've been blessed, tremendously blessed to be exposed to a lot, to matriculate at some of the best institutes in the country, to be mentored by some of the best leaders and preachers in the country. And at this stage of my life, it's important to me that I become a resource for other leaders and other preachers, both in the secular and the sacred arena. And so I'm in that stage and place in my life where producing resources and material that will benefit leaders, pastors, and people as a whole, and living a champion life is very important to me. So that's what made the bestseller fulfilling for me. It speaks to where I'm at in this season of my life.
Absolutely. We've been working together for, do I want to say like 25 years? Has it really been? It's been a long
It's
time.
been a long time I've been putting up with you. I've been putting up with you a long time.
Good morning, Leslie, over on YouTube. It's been a long time of you putting up with me. Yes.
And you putting up with me.
Yes.
Yeah, we've been putting up with each other a long time. But it's been a beautiful relationship journey, and it's God sent.
Absolutely.
Uh, I I know without a doubt God sent you, placed you in my life to be a midwife for me, and so I'm grateful to God for that, and to you for sharing your gift in a way that helps me share my gift.
It's truly been a blessing and it's been an honor because to be able to have relationships, trusted relationships. And I remember when I was introduced to you years ago, and when we started working together on you birthing your first book out, there was some issues of trust, and I had to really gain your trust to be able to carry such a gift. to the body. And so I appreciate you. I appreciate your wife, Sean, your family, because you've truly been a blessing to allow me to operate in what God has called me to do. And so here we are, years and years later, and you are still the same you. Just listen, you are a genuine soul. Your heart is bigger than life, and you are such a blessing to so many people. And being able to operate in this space that you operate in and building, helping to build champion leaders, is the testament to who you are as an individual, who God has created you and called you forth to be. So thank you for allowing me to share in that space in helping to birth out what God has put in you. So I do not take that lightly. Here we are with the number one bestseller. Let me pull it up on the screen. I'm talking about it, but let me show people.
Yeah, pull it up on the screen. Put it up on the screen.
Pull it up on the screen. Now you have a gift for us today also, right?
Say it again.
You have a gift for us that you are releasing to the world today
Oh yes,
also.
today the ebook is released. You can now get the book Full Course Preaching in three different formats. You can get it in hard copy, soft copy, or ebook. And so for those who like to get their hands on a book immediately and start reading, ebook is now available as of this morning.
But I'm putting it in the comments right now. So people can go, and I'll make it easy for you to just click on the link. Oh, that's a long link. Oh, that's a real long link. This is the ebook link that I'm putting in there. But when they go to it, they'll be able to see all three formats. And so let me just click send. I want to make that available. So yes, people. Oh, it came across. Let me get a shorter one too. Yes, that did come across. But hold on, I'm going to put the shorter one in there, then they can click on the ebook. But we really want people to have the opportunity, if you have not received or picked up your copy yet. And we want to thank everybody for helping to make it a number one bestseller on Amazon. Now we have an opportunity to make his ebook a number one bestseller too. So please, please make sure you click the link. I'm going to put the link in. Click on Kindle when you go into Amazon so you can purchase a copy. Absolutely. Now let's talk a little bit about it, okay? So last week, you want to give a quick recap for last week, because this is part two.
Who, for those just joining us, um, full course preaching is the idea that preaching should be like preparing a well balanced meal. That's the idea that full course preaching is rooted in. That's how God gave it to me as a metaphor, and that's how I've been approaching it and going about shaping and developing and delivering both sermons and speeches, because it is true both in the sacred and the secular arena. And so sermons are either all substance with no structure, or all excitement with no depth. That's what you get from a lot of sermons and a lot of speeches. And so a full course sermon has intentional layers and engaging. It has an engaging introduction. It has a well developed body. It has meaningful illustrations in there, smooth transitions, and a powerful conclusion. The goal is to feed people spiritually in a way that is both nurturing and memorable. I think it's important that uh, when you speak or when you preaching a sermon, whether you're in the sacred or the secular arena, standing on the stage, that your sermon or your speech not only have effectiveness and power in that moment, but that is memorable, and it has power beyond the stage, power beyond the sanctuary, power beyond whatever venue you may be speaking to. I don't know why, but I do not hear you, Germaine.
I forgot to unmute.
Okay, all right.
I'm
There
here
you
now.
go.
So I do have a few questions that came from last time you were here, and so until now, but it's okay for me to go ahead and jump in with these questions?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about, you just really talked about last time what we talked about, full course preaching, for those that weren't here. And for those that want to get the full length of his discussion, just go over to our YouTube channel at Morning Brew with Germaine so you can listen to from start to finish his part one. And now we're going to get into part two. So part two, he's going to go a little deeper. What is one of the biggest mistakes preachers make after they understand the basics?
One of the biggest mistakes is assuming that structure alone equals effectiveness. You can have a well outlined sermon and still not connect with people, because preaching is not just about organization, it is about connection. If the message doesn't reach both the mind and the heart, it won't lead to transformation. And that's the end goal. We preach for transformation, not just to deliver and share information. And so in in part two of this conversation today, I I emphasize moving from just building sermons to actually delivering experiences. Speak to the heart, as well as the mind. Again, I have you ever had someone say, I just had a great time in church. We had, oh my goodness, church was good today. What did he preach about? What was the sermon about? I can't remember, but I can tell you we had a good time in it. I don't remember what the sermon was about. I don't remember the sermon title, but we had a good time. That's an example of what I'm talking about. It was great. It was powerful for that moment, but because the sermon was not built, the meal was not prepared in a way for them to memorize it, to walk out of there and have images in their mind, and the sermon still gripping their heart, leads you into conversations where there's excitement, but they cannot regurgitate what the title was, and sometimes what was the main focus of the sermon. That's an example of what I'm talking about. And so when you're preparing that meal, it has to be prepared in a way that um, it has more than just structure to it, and it speaks more to just the mind, but also to the heart.
That's interesting that you brought that up, because I was thinking that. I said normally you can, after church is out, you can ask people what was the message about, what did they take away from the message, and a lot of times it's like they're not retaining the message, you
Well, a
know?
lot of that has to do with, and I in my pre- preaching and teaching of preaching, I try to remind preachers and ministers that um, you have not preached an effective sermon. You have not delivered an effective meal if it's not memorable.
Mhm.
I I literally I've been approached in airports, so many places, and people come up to me and tell me sermons that I preached 5, 10, 20 years ago,
Wow.
because it's it was it was prepared in a way in which it would be memorable. Yeah, I still get that. People can tell me sermons that I preached all the way as far as 20 years ago.
So now I'm starting to understand full course preaching, because you had taking something you love doing, something that's a part of your life, your everyday life, um, being a minister, being a pastor, preaching, you've taken this and you turned it into a way that can make it unforgettable. And you know what? While I'm saying this, before I ask you this next question, I keep thinking about this. I had this meal, this salmon meal, and every time I go to this place, I'm always looking for that same prepared salmon, right? But it has left such an impression on me that I'm disappointed because I never get it the same way, right? But what's interesting, you have taken full course preaching and turned it into, a 6-star meal, pretty much, or a 5-course meal, however you want to look at it. But you've been able to break it down. So let me ask you this. You talk about in the book feeding the room. What does that mean in practical terms?
In praxis, when I talk about feeding the room means understanding who you're preaching to and preparing the meal with them in mind.
Mm.
And so in order to feed the room, you have to exegete your context. You have to have a high um, intellectual mindset in terms of your context. In fact, you should be constantly trying to uh, exegete your context. I know we're taught to exegete the text, the passage that we're preaching, but good preachers, great preachers, also exegete their context, their people. They understand. They think about everybody in the room, and every room is different.
Mhm.
Some people need something different. Some people come with a different appetite. Depends on where you're preaching, the context. And so some people need encouragement. Some people need correction. Some people need clarity. And so a good preacher doesn't just prepare a message. They prepare for people.
Yes.
And so that means asking, what does this congregation need from God right now? And then delivering the word in a way that meets that need. When I'm cooking up and preparing a spiritual meal, there is a space, there's a place in my process where I literally, in my mind, I walk through that congregation. I visualize the people. I think about those whose names are on the prayer list. I think about those who I know they're experiencing challenges in their life. I think about the conversations I've had with people. I think about where people are at this season in their life, and so with them in mind, that helps me to prepare a meal that's not just thrown together for anybody, but it's kind of tailor made for the people I'm speaking to. That's what people mean when they tell the preacher or the pastor after church, how did you know
Did you
my
know?
business? What you doing in my business?
Exactly.
You was all in my business this morning. You ever said that or felt that way? Like the pastor was just preaching directly to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And no, that happens when you have your congregation or your audience in mind when you're preparing the meal. That's what I mean by feeding the
Feeding it.
room. You have to be intentional about knowing your room, learning your room, and staying close to the people who are in the room. Yeah.
So I have a question for you, but I want to a question from the comments, the community. But I want to say one thing. You mentioned it earlier, and you also explained it just now. It is about an experience. It is engagement. It is not just a quick message on the fly every Sunday. It is really knowing those that sit amongst you. It's being able to meet the needs without even specifically knowing the needs, but allowing God to expose and share that through your message. And so this is a question that kind of ties in with that. Is there, so this is from at TLG Fashions. Is there a connection, or how do a person that is not a preacher but want a deeper dive into the word connect to this book?
Well, the book is geared primarily towards helping preachers, ministers. But here's what is beautiful about the book. Everything that I teach in the book about communication, about speaking, all the techniques, all the strategies, they're universal. Everything that I have in this book, written for preachers and ministers, I apply those same principles. I engage in that same approach when I speak to my secular audience, because I'm not just in one space.
Area. Yeah.
I speak a lot in the sacred and in the secular. And so everything that I teach, all the techniques that I teach about structuring the introduction, the main course, the appetizer, the dessert, all of the rhetoric techniques that I share, they're universal. You can use them in any context, in any setting. Somebody who is engaging in public speaking can take this book and they'll be transformed in their space, even though it's sacred. It's not in the sacred, but it's the secular, because the principles, everything is universal. The only difference is you won't be quoting scriptures.
Absolutely.
But whether you're speaking to a secular sacred audience, you still need to have a well-developed appetizer. You still need to have a well-developed seasoned main course. You still need to prepare a delicious, delightful dessert. And you need to season that speech well, where it is tasteful, it is memorable, it is lasting. When you finish it, they walk out and they're still drooling, and the taste lasts in their mouth for a while. And so the principles, everything I teach in this book about preaching is universal. You can take it and you can use it if you're writing a speech to anyone in a secular arena space that you're speaking to. So that's a good question. So this I wrote this book for preachers and ministers, but you can benefit greatly from it whether you speak in the secular or the sacred arena, because everything that I teach, every principle again, is universal. It works in the sacred and the secular arena.
Absolutely. Even as I was publishing it, I found that it was so uniquely presented, that it's relatable. And I know your assignment, let me say this right. One of your assignments is you have a heart for really building leaders, champion leaders. And so in engaging and helping to bring this book to the marketplace as the publisher, I found that it's life applications. Like you said, you don't have to just be a preacher, but it is a phenomenal resource for those that are called into the ministry and they need a roadmap or they need a guide. This is a great book to help them along their journey. So that was a great question, TLG Fashions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's
All right,
written
so
to it is. I'll put it this way: it's written to ministers and preachers and pastors, but it's not limited to them.
mhm,
Anyone who engages in public speaking will be blessed and benefit from this book.
absolutely. Let me ask you, are you hearing an echo from me?
No,
Okay, maybe it's just on my end. But all right, so I have some more questions. I want to say over on Instagram, Kai Unique, thank you so much for joining. Had the privilege of meeting this young man yesterday, which he really blessed my soul. So I'm glad to be in relationships in relationship with him. So let's talk about. I have another question. Hold on, let me get my questions for you. So how can preachers, well, you talked about this. How can preachers make their sermons more memorable? You did touch on that. So you want to elaborate a little more?
Well, yeah, I can say some more to it about it. Memorable sermons are built on clarity, imagery, and repetition.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the things that makes a sermon memorable really is imagery. And so I teach that and try to get people to understand it, because the problem is this here. Most people speak to be heard. You cannot just speak to be heard. You must also speak for them
Mm.
to see
Yes.
what you're saying, to feel what you're saying. Because here's what research shows. Research shows that people forget 90 to 95% of what they hear an hour later, but they can still remember images. Images don't escape that way. Images are still in your mind. And when you connect with the heart, that you still have that connection there. And so memorable sermons are built on clarity, imagery, and repetition. And there is so many ways to create imagery that I teach in the book and I teach in preaching. I mean, one of the basic ways you begin with creating imagery is just learning how to replace weak verbs with strong verbs. After I finish writing my manuscript, the very first thing I do, so I got like a whole list of cycles I take my sermon through. The first cycle that I take my manuscript through after I finished it is I read back through it and I look at every verb and I value that verb. I rate that verb and I'm trying to see, can I make that verb stronger? Do I need to make that verb stronger? Because strong verbs give you imagery. Strong verbs give you insights to what's happening. I give an example. I can say Vernon, Dr. V, and Germaine walked out of the room. I can say Dr. V walked out of the room with Germaine. Okay, I'm going to say the same thing, but I'm going to take that verb walk, which is weak, and make it a strong verb. And I'm going to make it give imagery. Dr. V drug Germaine out of the room. Dr. V carried Germaine out of the room. Do you see how that verb, that strong verb, just brought
Yeah.
imagery, just infused imagery, just gave you deeper and greater insight to what's going on? It's a big difference between saying
It is.
Dr. V walked Germaine out of the room versus Dr. V carried Germaine or drug Germaine out of the room. It not only gives you imagery, it gives you deeper insight to what's taking place and happening. People remember what they can see and feel. So I encourage preachers to use strong illustrations, vivid language, strong verbs, and clear structure. If your audience can visualize the message, they will retain the message. And if they retain it, they will apply. And so
Yeah.
strong verbs is a way, stories is another way, analogies is another way, illustrations is another way. You can't just have your sermon or a speech where all of the weight is on getting them to hear what you say. You must be intentional, skillful, and crafty enough to season that message in a way that it not only is heard, but it is seen and felt. That's what I'm talking about when I mean make the sermon, make the meal memorable. I hope that helped.
It does help. And you know what? I just want to emphasize that I've been working with you for a long time, over 20 plus years helping to push those books out. And the one thing I can say about you is you're like a painter with a brush, and it's like these strokes, you know? You have such an ability to storytell and to really, like you said, emphasize on really allowing people to visually see what you're speaking about, what you're sharing and talking about. And that's why this book I thought was so unique, how you came with full course preaching and you related it to meals we eat every day. People can remember that. People can remember the meals. I shared about the salmon that I have yet to get it again, the way they prepared it. But you brought it visually to people, so it makes it memorable.
And again, most is just the reality, the truth. Most sermons are not memorable.
Hmm.
Again, I can't tell you how many times. I mean, your audience probably can relate to what I'm talking about, where you had a great time at church, but you could not tell anyone, and probably couldn't tell yourself, what was the sermon about, what was the main takeaways, you know, Sunday night or the next day or a week later. But you had a good time. You know, we shouted, we praised, we jumped, we ran, we turned cartwheels, but you cannot tell anybody what the sermon was about because it wasn't memorable. It wasn't seasoned. It wasn't prepared to be memorable. Why do you think we run home to watch shows, we record our shows? It's the story, it's the narrative that keeps you hooked. It's the suspense, it's the drama, it's the tension. Great storytelling does all of that. It takes them on a journey. It takes your audience on a journey. It deals with the tension. It holds up the tension. It puts the tension in your lap. It brings its life, the characters to life with vivid descriptions. Yeah, that's why we get addicted to shows.
Exactly.
And we keep clicking, you know, next episode. Before you know it, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and you on episode. You're gonna went through 2 seasons.
You know, binge watch.
Yeah, it happens to me all the time, especially when I go to Pittsburgh. My son always got a new series. Dad, I think you'll like this one here. I think you like this one here. And I'll start clicking on it, especially if it's action and drama and tension. I'll start watching it, you know, probably 8 or 9 o'clock. Next thing I know, it's 3 a.m. I've watched the 2 seasons. Why? And the next morning, the next week, I can tell you what it was about because it was created, it was seasoned to be memorable.
Hmm.
Yeah. If there
So,
is, I don't think you are an effective teacher or preacher or a public speaker if there is no retention. If people can't remember what your speech or your sermon was about, I don't think you've communicated and connected with them well.
well, think about it. It's not penetrating. It's not leaving a lasting impression. It's not feeding my soul. It's not feeding my spirit. It's not, it's almost like it just bounced off of me. And now once I left the church doors, once I'm out of the church, I'm on to the next thing. And I'm just thinking about the high points, the music, feeling good in the spirit in that moment. But has the word resonated? Has it left a lasting impression with you the way it was
Again,
delivered?
as I said, if you can't, if people don't remember and retain your message, there's no way they can apply it.
Hmm.
Why do we speak? Why do we give speeches? Why do motivational people give speeches? Why does leaders give speeches in staff meeting and to their corporation? Why does preachers and ministers preach? It's because our goal is transformation. Our goal is for them to take what we've said, what we shared, and make it transfer into praxis. But if you can't remember it, you can't apply it.
Absolutely.
And
Well,
so speeches and sermons that are put together as a meal and it's not a memorable meal, uh, it's not an impactful and effective meal.
exactly. Well, you pretty much went into my next two questions. I'll read the questions, but you pretty much already answered them. But if you want to touch on them, you emphasize transition in your book. Why are transitions so important? But you pretty much touched on that when you
Well,
said, when you go ahead,
it's
you talk about
think
it.
about this here. A dance should be smooth. You know, as you if you're moving from, one position to the next, as you're moving from one step to the next, it shouldn't be rigid. It should connect, just smoothly. And a lot of, I mean, just I literally over the years through all my training and coaching, I literally can improve someone who's a public speaker or someone who's in the sacred arena. I can improve their speech or sermon by 30% just by enhancing their introduction and their transitions. See, transitions are what move a sermon or a speech from one idea to the next without losing the audience.
Okay.
Poor transitions create confusion. Strong transitions create flow. Think of it like driving. If the
Mhm.
road is smooth, people enjoy the ride. If it's full of sudden stops and turns, they disengage. Transitions keep people connected and moving with your thought out message or thought out speech. Yeah, transitions are. It's interesting. I literally met with a um, pastor probably about 3 weeks ago to do some sermon work with him. And we literally just took his sermon and I taught him and showed him how to use transitions throughout his whole sermon. We took an old sermon and I mean, he has called me, that was like almost a month ago. He's called me every Sunday after he's preached. And he's just been so excited because now he moves and flows through his sermon so smoothly. And it's not abrupt, it's smooth. It's like a smooth motion. There should be a smooth flow from the introduction, from the appetizer to the main course. There should be smooth transition and flow as you're moving through one move or points. There should be a smooth flow from the main meal, the main course, into the dessert. It should be smooth. It should flow smooth. And it's something great speakers and preachers, they transition very well.
I have a question that this what you just said leads right into a question from TLG Fashions. I'm going to put it up on the screen and read it. It says, um uh-oh, does the book explain the difference between a wet sermon and a dry sermon? Can you further embellish on these two concepts?
Well, I don't know um, what their definition of a wet sermon is and their definition of dry sermon is.
Mhm.
So I'm not really clear what how they're defining wet and dry. Um, I can only guess. You know, a dry sermon can be. I mean, using the food metaphor, chef metaphor, it can be a sermon that's considered bland. It can be a sermon that is not well seasoned. It can be a sermon that lacks flavor from certain recipes that should be in a sermon. So I'm not really sure um, what their definition is of dry and wet. Um, but you kind of know when your sermon uh, is has flavor, has structure, is well seasoned. When it engages people, you kind of have an idea when, as we would say, when the people are sitting on the edge of their seat and they're engaged, and you've gotten them. You not only have gotten them on the bus, but they're riding with you. And so in that it is doing that appetizer, that introduction, that's where you have that small window, that small time to get them on the bus, and they have to decide whether they're gonna ride with you or they're gonna be on their phone the whole time you preaching or speaking. And so you kind of have an idea when whether that has happened. And I guess again, I don't know how they define dry wet, but if it's a dry sermon, again, it's not connecting with people, it has not grabbed their attention, it is not connected with their mind and heart, it has not introduced the topic, the subject, and you failed to get them on the bus, and you're riding, but you're riding by yourself. You know, you're driving the bus. They may even be on the bus, but everybody's on their phone. They're disconnected. That could be considered a dry sermon when you fail to connect with the people, or it lacks a lot of ingredients that a sermon or a speech should have. Again, I'm guessing because I don't know how they
That's the
define it.
first time I've heard the term.
I think that's about their seventh question. I need to send them a bill.
Oh, so, well, I have another question. And I want to say over on Instagram, hello to Michaela Edwards. Thank you so much, official, for joining. So I do have another question. This is from Leslie George. I'm going to put it up on the screen. One of Pastor's sermons, Pastor Vernon Shazier, one of Pastor's sermons over 12 years ago was when he talked about a chair he stood on. A chair. He stood on the chair and said, the designer of the chair didn't make it for us to stand on. We all have a purpose. That's someone remembering a message from 12 years ago. There's those paintbrush strokes, visually, you painting the picture.
That's what I mean when I talk about being memorable. That's when I'm talking about retention. And again, imagery does that. Words alone cannot do that. Words alone will not do that. You're again, whether you're speaking in the secular or preaching in the sacred, imagery is a major part of what makes a sermon good or great or mediocre, okay, or bad. And it's an art. In everything. There's a science and an art, and you need to know both the science and the art when you're cooking and preparing a sermon or a speech. And again, if you may not be a preacher, somebody in your audience, somebody tuning in, you may not be a preacher or minister, but the principles and what I teach in this book will apply in the secular arena, public speaking, just as well. It will make you a better, stronger, powerful public speaker. And here's the reason why. Being good at public speaking is great, because I don't care what position you are, especially if you're a leader. You're always trying to sell something. You're selling an idea. You're selling a concept. You're selling yourself. And if you don't know how to communicate and sell yourself in a way that is tasteful, powerful, you're not a good salesman. And so public speaking is not just for, those who stand on the stage and speak to thousands to motivate them. It helps us in our job. It helps you get promotion, advancements, because here's what I can tell you is true. Person A can be very knowledgeable of their organization and the organization's product, but they are not a good communicator. person two, employee two, can be okay with their knowledge of all the company products, but they're a great communicator. Employee two or B will outsell and outperform employee A because of their ability to communicate and connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
My point is, there are people who have good content, great content, but they're poor communicators. Very knowledgeable, smart, but poor communicators. But you can take somebody who may not be as knowledgeable as them, uh, but they're a great communicator. They will outperform them, and in most cases, they will get promoted before the other person will. Because again, you are selling ideas to people. You're selling, trying to get them to believe in you, to believe in the company, to get on board with the vision, the goal, and everything. And if you're not a good communicator, it's challenging to do that.
Absolutely. That segues right into another question that I wanted to ask you. Talking about delivery. So, what separates a good preacher from a great one? And you kind of touched on that. Before you go, I just want to say welcome, Apostle Luther McKinstry over on Instagram. Thank you so much for chiming in. It's been a long time. So, you touched on it, the delivery, what separates a good preacher from a great one?
Well, again, great, and I'm speaking to both worlds, because the principles in the book is not just limited to preachers and ministers. They're universal. They'll make you a better speaker and communicator, whether you're speaking in the secular or the sacred arena. Again, come back close to me. Great chefs not only prepare great meals, they deliver a great presentation.
Mm-hmm.
I have a restaurant I frequent quite a lot in Fort Pierce. It's called Fats Sports and Grill. The food is good. I've never eaten anything at Fats that I wasn't pleased with. But their presentation is also beautiful. I mean, the salad, when they put the salad on the table, I mean, it's like everything is in order. You got the tomatoes is where in line with the tomatoes need to be, the cheese in line with the cheese, the ham in line with the ham. I mean, the delivery, the presentation is beautiful, as well as the meal that has been prepared. Because you can have a well prepared meal, but have a poor delivery. You listen. It may it may sound kind of backwards, but there are people who are more effective, who are great deliverers. On a scale of 1 to 10, they're 10 in their delivery, and they may be a 6 or 7 in their content. When you have people who are 10 in their content, but they're like a 3 or 4 in their delivery. The one who is 10 in their delivery and a 7 in their content is always going to be more impactful than the one who you put together a good meal, but then the presentation was horrible.
That's what you've done with this book.
It's horrible. The goal is both.
Mm-hmm.
Not only learn how to prepare a full course meal, but also how to present it, how to deliver it.
That's what you've done. And I just wanted to share the book again as we're talking about the book. These are some of the things that you're really going to be able to find in full course preaching. from appetizer to dessert, you really broke it down on a level that is so relatable that it feels like you're eating your meal for the day or preparing your meal, for your Sunday message. So this is definitely a book that everyone should have. Today you're releasing the ebook at $9.99 for the ebook. So for those that have not picked up their copy, definitely you want to get a copy of this. So your book hit Amazon #1 bestseller. Now the ebook, it's listen, you can get it in all versions. The ebook, carry it on your phone, whatever works for you. But I just believe that it's not just like you said, it was written for leaders, for preachers, but it's for the everyday person.
Yeah. The everything that I teach and I share in full course preaching is universal. It'll apply in the secular public speaking arena. And so it's it's written for preachers and ministers, but again, it's not limited to them because effective speaking techniques, strategies are universal and they work just as well in the secular and the sacred. And so if you thought this book wasn't for you because you're not a minister or preacher, it is for you. It will make you a better communicator.
Absolutely. So I want to segue into this. How do you balance preparation and dependence on the Holy Spirit?
Hmm. That's a critical question. It's,
Mm-hmm.
the, it's also an important question.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, let me give it to you this way, in your audience this way. Preparation is our responsibility. It's the preacher's responsibility. It's the minister's responsibility. Power is God's. We'll say that again. I said it a little slower. Preparation is our responsibility. Power is God's. You study, you pray, you structure, but when you stand up to preach, you must remain sensitive to the Holy Spirit. The best preaching happens when preparation meets divine guidance. It's not either or, it's both. You need your preparation. You need all the time that you've labeled and you've wrestled in preparing that sermon to also meet with God when you stand. And you should stand depending on God. I I,
Absolutely.
I even talk about that in the beginning of the book. I'm depending on God before I even start writing that sermon. Before I start reading, I start working on my sermon Sunday night, and so before I start reading that text on Sunday night, I've already prayed and asked God to give me wisdom, insight, everything I need um, to see, to interpret, to get this sermon to live in me and me to live in it. I'm asking him power. I'm inviting him into the process from the very beginning and throughout of it. I'm praying and depending on God. And when I stand, whether it's the secular or the sacred, when I stand as a prepared preacher or speaker, but I also stand depending on God to show up. Whenever you get to the place, if you ever get to the place where you stand, whether in the secular or the sacred, and you depending on all of your might, strength, resource, intellectual property, is a dangerous is a dangerous place to be where you get comfortable standing alone. I don't like to stand alone. I want God to stand with me.
Well, you said a mouthful because I don't know how do you do it without the Spirit of God intervening to feed the flock.
Well, there's people who there are sadly
Effective.
there are people who stand in both the secular and the sacred, and they stand and they do not. God is not on their mind.
Mm-hmm.
they and that's the temptation we when we've prepared and when we lean on our intellectual property, our ability, our strengths, our talents, our gift. I'm saying our gifts. We can stand there thinking, hey, it's us. We're doing it all. I don't need anybody else. I got the skills, I got the ability, I know how to do it, and I can do it by myself. Uh, Many
Yeah.
stand that way. I don't. Again, whether I'm speaking in the sacred or the secular arena, from the time I start working on preparing that meal, I'm trying to keep God in it, and definitely when I stand to deliver it.
Absolutely.
But I guess the way to say it is, we bear the responsibility to prepare the best as we can, and then trust God to show up and give us His power in that moment.
Hey, great. I have two more questions if I can ask. I know I'd be trying to hold you over your time, but let me ask you this. What impact do you hope full course preaching has on the next generation of preachers?
My hope is that it raises the standard,
Hmm.
that preachers move from just delivering sermons to truly feeding God's people. The next generation has incredible potential. They're one of the most educated generations, most literate generations, but they need structure, they need discipline, and a commitment to excellence. Uh, they need to understand delayed gratification. They need to understand the necessity of making sacrifices.
Hmm.
They need to understand the weight that comes with putting that collar on, the weight with uh, accepting your calling and walking in it. If this book helps them take preaching seriously and approach it with intentionality, then it has done its job. I
Hmm.
want them. I'm praying. My hope is that this book will make every preacher, every minister take their job serious. What is their job? Feeding the people of God, feeding God's sheep. That's that's what I'm hoping this book does for the present and the next generation.
You know, I want to say this, and I want to thank Leslie George. Leslie, you know how I am. So, when you're open up to receiving, and I always say, I hope people take away as they come into sharing in the space of Morning Brew, chiming into the conversation. I hope something resonates with you, something you could take away on your journey. And I want to say, Leslie, thank you, because there's been such a download in her. And I just literally, as I was texting, I just told her she literally has just bought confirmation of what we've been talking about for full course preaching, and really seeing that ecosystem being built to be a blessing to so many people. So for her to pick it up in the spirit as you've been sharing and talking is just confirmation what God is doing. So um, thank you, Leslie, for even being obedient to just share that. Um, so okay, I know we're coming up, the hour's up, and I be, I want you to come back again next month. So, but I do want to say hello, Nate. Hello, in Wills. Nate Wills is 69 over on Instagram. Thank you so much for chiming in. High school days. But hold on, I got another comment. Hold on. Love you too, Leslie. I want to say um, there's so much more to come. Every month you come, you bring gifts with you. And you've been with Morning Brew. Can you believe we're coming up on a year in May? 1 year. So I have this whole thing in my mind planned out, thanks to my team. But I have this whole thing in my mind planned out for all those that are part of Morning Brew to really be able to celebrate the 1 year anniversary in May. May, 1 year. 1 year I've been consistent. See, that's all that champion leadership coaching that I get from you. 1 year, 5 days a week, and pretty much having this platform just be a space for like people like yourself to be able to come on and bring added value and share what God has placed in your heart and in your spirit to be able to share with the world. So I celebrate you. I thank you so much. Thank you for bringing all the gems and the jewels and the gifts of what God has put in you. So today, yes, another release of full course preaching. The ebook is now available. Now listen, next month when he come back, the audiobook may be available. Or right now, I know he has a list of items for me to help birth out in the spirit, right? His book project. So it might be a whole new book. But I appreciate you because you are not wasting any time. You definitely keep me busy.
I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep.
You are emptying out everything before you leave this place. And I can really appreciate that. Leaving your legacy behind for people to be able to live on what God has given you in this earth long after. That's what you're building, legacy. Legacy. And congratulations also on the new addition to the family.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Praise God.
Another boy. Another boy. All right. So I just final because I know we're over our mark, but I do want to say your final question. This is it. If you could give one piece of advice to every preacher listening today, or just everybody right now that's listening, what would it be?
Respect the responsibility of the pulpit. Every time you stand to preach, you are handling the word of God and speaking into God's people's lives. Don't take that lightly. Prepare well, pray deeply, and preach with purpose. And always remember, you're not just giving a message, you're feeding souls. So don't just prepare sermons, prepare meals that feed souls. That's what
Oh,
would be my advice.
well, I'm going to let you. Oh, before we do, I have a comment. Hold on 1 second. I want to make sure that, let me just, that is great advice from my pastor. Yes, Leslie George.
Well,
Absolutely.
I hope
Thank you
your
for
audience will help me. I know your audience know ministers or pastors that they are friends with. Please send them full course preaching. Let them
Yes.
know about full course preaching. You can even purchase the book for them as a gift, or at minimum, send them the link. Go to Amazon, click on the link, and send them the link to Full Course Preaching and tell them you need to read this book. It will bless your life. So if you
The link is
help
in
me
the
with that, I will be very appreciative.
The link is in the comments, so please just click the link. It's available in 3 formats, from the ebook to the paperback and the hardcover book. And I want to celebrate you again for this book becoming a #1 Amazon bestseller. And let's see what happens with this ebook. So I believe it's going to go right to that status as well. It is available for $9.99. Definitely bless someone with a gift. Spread some love today. Someone probably really looking to receive this from you. I'm saying that to everyone out there that's listening, okay? And so, thank you so much once again. I'm just going to close with, you know, he already said the closing words, so I'm not going to go behind him with that. I'm just going to say, you know how we do here on Morning Brew with Germaine. So the final sip is Evaluation requires execution. So today we sip slow, absorb what you've learned, pour into purpose. So, yes, take one step forward and go to the next level. Move on what's already inside of you. So, listen, we thank you so much for chiming in. We'll be back tomorrow. Remember, Monday through Friday. We'll be back tomorrow, Morning Brew with Germaine. Dr. V, you know I love you. Thank you so much for being a part of my family. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge. And listen, if people want to reach you, how can they get in touch with you?
info@vernonshazier.com.
It's as easy as that. It's
I,
as easy as
I,
that.
I do speech coaching, preach coaching, life coaching, leadership coaching. If you need a coach, I am your champion coach.
You're my champion coach. So I put it up on the screen that people can connect with Dr. V at info@vernonshazier.com,
They can
or
also go, they can also go to my website,
yep,
vernonshazier.com.
it's yep. So let me
All
just put
one
that
word.
back up. It's all one word back up on the screen. So, guys, thank you so much for stopping by, having coffee and conversation with us today. And guess what? God willing, we'll be back again next month. He's the third Wednesday of every month. So I know there was 5 Wednesdays in this month, but doesn't matter. He's here with us today. So he'll be back next month, God willing. And let's see what goodies he brings next month. So make sure, I'm going to put it up on the screen before we in this, but make sure you get your copy. The link is in the comments on both Instagram as well as Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Make sure you get your copy. And you know what? If you've already purchased the copy, purchase one for someone else. Download the ebook, okay? Have a great day. Have a great day. And until we meet again, I'll see you all tomorrow. Be safe,
I
whatever you
see.
decide to do. And happy birthday to my husband. Today's his birthday.
Okay. Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
Big
Ken.
Ken.
Yes.
I'm
Sending
sure
him
you're
some
going
love,
to
Ken.
take care of him. I'm sure you're going to take good care of him.
I sure enough will.
All
All
right.
right. Until we meet again, I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.